Welcome to the Rob Bro Show. I am Rob Bro. I am the host. You are the co-host. You can co-host today by commenting on the Starting Line chat line. The Starting Line chat line brought to you by Starting Line Counseling. We're also here in the Diversified Lenders studio. Diversified Lenders, great partners of the Rob Bro Show. Starting Line chat line, we'll get to them a little bit later in the show, tell you more about them. As always, you can go to Starting Line chat line, StartingLineCounseling.com to find out more about Starting Line Counseling. Carson, how you doing, man? We got baseball to talk about. We've got basketball to talk about. We've got football to talk about, both college and NFL. It is a crazy week. You know, people say once the college football season ends, there's nothing to talk about. It's not true. The college football offseason is more robust than ever. It's like the NFL nowadays with the transfer portal and free agency. It goes year round. Obviously, college basketball is in full force. People treat the offseason like it's the offseason. It's not. It's just a different kind of season. It's the off season. So we'll talk about a lot of things, but we'll start with Major League Baseball today and then get into some more pressing matters. Arbitration is going on. Our beloved Texas Rangers signed a couple of yesterday. Didn't sign a key piece. We'll talk about that, but let's start with who they signed, starting with Leody Taveras, who got a couple $1 million to stick around for at least another year.
Yeah, $2.5 million for Leody Taveras. You also signed Jonah Heim back through arbitration. You don't have to go to the arbitration hearing with Jonah Heim. $3.05 million for Heim. You came to conclusions with Josh Sborz, Brock Burke, Jonathan Hernandez, Nathaniel Lowe, and Dane Dunning. So a lot of guys that you wanted to get these things done, and most of them, only one guy was left out. Going to go to arbitration hearing, but yeah, you get Leody Taveras, Dane Dunning, which is a piece of what you did this year. Josh Sborz, who was after they sent him back down to AAA and brought him back up. Jonathan Hernandez injury last year, wasn't able to finish the year, but Jonah Heim, another big pickup for $3 million. Jonah Heim is a steal to be having Jonah Heim, and they also signed Mitch Garver, I think, for around $2.9 million for a 1-year deal for Mitch Garver as well. And he was great when Jonah Heim was gone. So it feels like you're re-signing the guys that you wanted to, other than a couple pitching prospect, a couple guys on the mound that you want to sign. They're just going for too much money now. You're just not coming to terms with those guys. So, and then the guy left standing out in the rain right now is Leody Taveras. I mean, not Leody Taveras. The other outfielder in Garcia, who you're $1.9 million away. Adolis was seeking $6.9 million. You offered him $5 million. And so now it'll go to an arbitration mediator, an arbitrator, and they will decide how much Adolis Garcia will get paid next year.
I thought Mitch Garver signed with Seattle.
I had a thing. Mitch Garver might have signed with Seattle. Maybe that was what I saw.
Yeah, I thought.
Yep, you're right. I completely. Yep, it was on a Texas Rangers thing, and I saw that it said Mitch Garver had signed, but it said with the Seattle Mariners. Yeah, you're right.
But
that's what I get for skimming.
Here's the deal with Leody Taveras, and a lot of the bullpen arms. You need them. They were really bad for stretches, but also good for stretches. A bunch of those guys. Nathaniel Lowe has been one of the best first basemen, one of the most underrated first basemen, back-to-back Silver Slugger, Golden Glove seasons. You love to have him back in the rotation. But a bunch of those guys, especially in the outfield, Adolis Garcia included, who's 30 years old, Taveras included. You have Evan Carter. You have Wyatt Langford.
Yeah, I was going to say Wyatt Langford too.
Might start the season at the major league level. When he was drafted, before he was drafted, somebody said, and I can't find the quote, but somebody said he's the next Mike Trout, or could be. And then based on what he's done in the minors this season, his numbers stack up with who? Mike Trout.
Mike Trout.
Minors. A little bit older than Mike Trout was, but still. Look, you have to be excited about Wyatt Langford. and that would be probably your center fielder. Um, where does Adolis Garcia fit long term? I'm sure his conversations they're having. Where does Leody Taveras fit long term? I'm sure his conversations they're having. But you can't play 4 outfielders. You can for a season, but you can't in a game. So it's a tough conversation you're having to have. I would love to have Adolis Garcia signed for a couple of seasons. In arbitration, you probably just get him for one more. I'm fine with that too, especially if it's Evan Carter that takes over in right field eventually. But man, Adolis Garcia has been a really good Ranger for the last 3 seasons and has hit a bunch of clutch home runs and hits. And El Bombi had some of the biggest hits of his career and of the Texas Rangers' lifetime in that World Series and ALCS. So I think you can reward him with $1 million more as kind of a bonus. You don't want to overpay him, but I don't see how $7 million is overpaying a guy like Adolis Garcia. He hit 39 home runs last year. He's hit at least, I think he went 31 home runs, 27 home runs in the bad season that Texas had, the last bad season, and then 39 this year. He doubled his walks from his rookie season to his third season. He had a much better plate approach with Bruce Bochy and this hitting staff. Adolis Garcia makes a ton of sense to be back as a Texas Ranger next year. And I think the arbitration guy will give him a good number that they can agree to.
Well, and you look at the only thing that you think of in arbitration and this too, Adolis was making $750,000 last year, right? So that was his salary last year. They'll look at that. They'll look at his numbers. They will look at what the Rangers have offered him. And then you go back to last year during arbitration. Kyle Tucker was in this same situation with the Houston Astros, had a great year with the Houston Astros. And Kyle Tucker is just that consistent dude, right fielder again. That's who a lot of people are comparing this deal to. He asked for $7.5 million from the Astros last year, and arbitrator gave him $5 million. So, and I think the Astros had offered like $4.5 million. So they kind of met towards the middle, but the Astros ended up winning a little bit in that. I think at the very most, Adolis will end up with maybe $6.25 million. He's not going to get that 6.9 that he wants. But there's no other opportunity for him. He's got to go with what the arbitrator says. That's how baseball works. You know, you're controlled by a club for 6 years, and then you can become an unrestricted free agent. Now, things can happen where he cannot agree to it. He can say, I'm not playing, and they can DFA him, and then he can get picked up by another team off waivers. That can happen. But I don't know that if it was 2025 Texas with Wyatt Langford playing a year in the show or has had time in the show for a year, then you're like, okay, Adolis, we're not coming to grips. We're not coming to terms. Go get what you deserve. We can't give you that. But you feel okay because you have Evan Carter, you have Wyatt Langford, you have Leody Taveras. Those are 3 pretty good outfielders, and they're all really young. And you have control over those 3 guys, at least over Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford for 4 and 5 more years. So I think if it was next season, it would be a bigger deal. But this season, I think they're going to come to some understanding. Leodis will be playing for the Texas Rangers next year. I mean, Adolis will be playing for the Texas Rangers next year and playing in right field. And you could see him DHing a little bit next year as well if they want to bring Wyatt Langford up, because you're not going to bring Wyatt Langford up and he's not going to platoon. Wyatt Langford's going to come up and he's going to play. That's not what you do with premium rookies. You don't just come up and platoon a premium number 1 prospect. You play him like Evan Carter did. He came and he played from the get. And that was because Adolis was hurt. It's why Evan Carter came up, but Evan Carter was so good. Adolis has, Evan Carter took over a position that Robbie Grossman and guys like that were getting to play. And Jankowski were getting to play on a platoon basis, and it became not a platoon. So Adolis will be playing right field next year. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Leody Taveras, Wyatt Langford, and Evan Carter. I think your starting outfield is Adolis in right, Leodis in center, Evan Carter in left, and we'll see what they do with Wyatt Langford. I just don't – if he has a great spring, what can you do other than put him on the big league roster, put him in center field, and Leody Taveras is the odd man out? You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it might be.
Well, and I would say Adolis Garcia is the odd man out defensively, even though he's got the best arm and probably is the best right fielder, might be the best center fielder on the team.
Yeah.
But he also could just be the best DH.
True.
And I guess if you're having bats in the lineup, and you go for the best defensive lineup, but you want to see what Evan Carter can do defensively because you're trying to sign him long term.
Right.
You want to see what Wyatt Langford can do defensively, and then Leody Taveras, maybe he's the DH because he might be the most inconsistent center fielder you have on the roster.
Yeah.
Making great plays at times, but defensively it was inconsistent this season. So
it'd be crazy to DH your 9-hole, though.
I know.
Crazy to put your DH in the 9, and he's a switch hitter though, so it's not like it bothers you to take him and put him there and have it as the 9-hole. But you can interchange the DH on days too.
Garver's gone.
Yeah.
And you might just DH through the whole outfield and just say, hey, you guys are all going to be DH. You're all going to bat. You're all going to play defense. We've got 5 outfielders. That's just how it's going to be. We'll see how that all shakes out. All right. Let's move on. We got some conversations here on the starting line chat line from OK. Thoughts on the second best coach of all time behind Joey McGuire, Nick Saban, retiring. We have not discussed this yet. But even further than that, when we talked about on the Gambling Gauchos, Nick Saban retiring. And then you had Dan Lanning as the number 1 option. He said, I'm sticking with Oregon. And a lot of people thought Steve Sarkisian would be the next guy. He said, I'm sticking with Texas. In my opinion, why would you go and replace Nick Saban when A, you're already in the SEC?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense for Steve Sarkisian, even though Alabama probably a step up, if only a slight step up from Texas. And then Oregon, why in the world would you go and replace Nick Saban when you have what you have at Oregon? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So let's go moving forward. Kalen DeBoer seems like the number 1 choice, which in Alabama world makes sense to me, and I'll tell you why. He is a longtime winner. He is a safe option. And if he only lasts 2 years, Alabama will not care and fire his ass and go get who they want. He is not a guy who has a long-standing, Power 5 tradition. He coached at Sioux Falls, and then Fresno State was his next head coaching job after a couple of offensive coordinator goes, and then has been at Washington, just took Washington to the national championship game. Good hire. That turns into, who does Washington hire? Jed Fish.
Yeah.
Arizona.
Number 1 on my list.
Bad news for Arizona coming into the Big 12.
Because bye-bye Noah Fafita. And bye-bye Tika Solomon. Yeah.
I would say with Arizona, who do you hire? So that's and I think just Justin Wilcox
at Cal.
Could be in the mix for that Washington job too.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of things at Cal that a lot of people can't do at Cal, and I think he deserves a step up.
Well, a guy like a Matt Campbell is also probably on that list too, because you're moving to the Big Ten. You want a guy who's familiar a little bit with that part of the world. Even though Matt Campbell's never been in the Big Ten, obviously, as a head coach, he's been at Iowa State, which is Big Ten country. I think Matt Campbell would be a guy that you could throw in at Washington. And I don't know that there'd be a big difference in that. And I think that would be a step up in jobs for Matt Campbell as well. You say you're moving from one Power 5 job to the next. I think Washington is a better job than Iowa State. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They're moving to the Big Ten. The Big Ten's a better conference overall than the Big 12 now, with Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But yeah, you said it. I think if Texas were still in the Big 12, Steve Sarkisian would be the easiest answer for this. There wouldn't be another guy that would be the answer, right? Steve Sarkisian would be the guy. Texas is going to the SEC. There's no way that Alabama can pay Steve Sarkisian what Texas can pay him. I mean, Texas will match everything that Alabama will pay him, right? There's no there's no way that Texas would never match something that there's no amount of money that Alabama can pay Sarkisian that would get him away from Texas, because
Right.
Texas will just match everything they do.
Well,
Kirby Smart would be another guy, but Georgia will match everything that he does. Yeah. They try and offer him too. So
they just won 2 championships at Georgia, so why go to Alabama?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the other name that was out there was Dabo Swinney, but his fall off in the last 3 years. If Saban retired 3 years ago, Swinney would have been the obvious choice,
and he would have gone too.
He would have jumped at it.
Yeah, because he's an Alabama guy. He played football at Alabama.
Yeah, but Swinney's fall off in the last couple of years, nobody's been turned on like Dabo Swinney, and it's really an amazing case study on how to not do public relations in the NIL era. He's been awful at it, and nobody wants him. Nobody wants Dabo Swinney anymore. Let's see. Is it true that Bama reached out to Joey? Saw something on Twitter. That was a joke. That was a screenshot from a text thread where they were making fun of Texas fans. Initially, when all the Texas fans were like, "Oh, Alabama reached out to Sark first," and Sark said flat out no and refused the interview. I don't know if that happened, but it does make sense that Sark stayed at Texas.
Yeah.
And then Alan Corbin says, has Eli Dorkowitz signed his extension at Mizzou yet? If you're Mizzou, you absolutely extend Eli Dorkowitz. I personally hate the guy. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
He's been good at Missouri. I can admit that he's been good at Missouri, and they had a really good year.
He's just good at black and gold schools. App State, Missouri. He doesn't want to go anywhere else besides a black and gold school.
See, I thought he fell into a good situation after Satterfield at App State.
Yeah.
And kind of just kept it alive, but he's improved Missouri, in my opinion. So I can put on my hater vision and take him off at the same time and say, I can see why people like Eli Dorkowitz. His press conferences make my blood boil for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, the only other outside the box name that you could see maybe taking the Alabama job is Alabama throws a bone to Urban Meyer or somebody like that. But Urban Meyer's been out of coaching for so long. That's just I saw that on Twitter. People saying, "Will Urban Meyer come out of retirement to coach Alabama?" I don't think Alabama would even be interested in Urban Meyer, to be honest with you. Yeah. He had great success in the places that he was. He had great success at Florida, great success at Ohio State, great success at Utah. But Urban Meyer's been out of college coaching for how many years now?
Yeah. Would Urban Meyer come back? Yes. Would Alabama want Urban Meyer? I don't think so.
No.
And all the smoke on Twitter is Kalen DeBoer right now.
Yeah. Kalen DeBoer is supposedly going to be announced as the head football coach at Alabama by end of day today. So, and if you're Alabama, you do.
Yeah.
I
think it
right now. And Nick Saban, even though it came as a surprise to all of us, I guarantee you he told the Alabama athletic directors and everybody, before the college football playoff or even in the middle of the season, hey, man, look, this one's been tough on me. I think this might be my last ride. You might want to start thinking about who you're going to pursue. Yeah. And Alabama's had names in the chamber for quite some time. I'll guarantee you that. Nick Saban's not the kind of guy that's just going to be like, hey, call the athletic director on Wednesday and say, hey, man, I'm retiring. Find somebody new. That's not how it went. It seems like that's how it went to all of us because we were all blindsided by it. But really, were you blindsided by it to some extent? Yes, but to a lot of the extent, no. Because the dude's he's done everything that you could possibly want him to do. He's 72 years old. Like, it was only a matter of time before Nick Saban was gone. And he deserves retirement, to be honest with you.
Since that booster meeting, where he called out publicly his NIL thing, whatever
collective,
it is. Collective. I don't know if they had a collective at the time.
No, not at the time they didn't.
When he called out the boosters, from that moment on, I thought Nick Saban is not of this world. He was the best coach of all time for the era he was in, but Nick Saban does not belong in the new college football. It's more like the NFL every day, and he does not compete in the NFL very well with free agency because he has to have control over his players, and you just don't have the same control over your players that you used to.
Yep.
So you have to get a guy that is in today's world, can go and get transfers. And again, I keep calling them free agents, and maybe
they are.
DeBoer is that guy. But again, if you're if you're a top 5 coach, Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, this is going to sound gross, but Steve Sarkisian, just because of where he is, there's no way you leave where you are to be the guy after that guy. It's just insane to me that you would think that.
Yeah.
Also in the NFL, lots of coaching changes. Bill Belichick announces his retirement the day after Nick Saban. It would be hilarious to see them go be analysts together somewhere because they're old friends. It would be really funny. I don't know what they would do. Maybe an NFL franchise kind of go take over that shadow organization. I believe the Patriots have hired Jared Mayo instead of Mike Vrabel. Jared Mayo has kind of been the guy in waiting there. Was their linebackers coach, I believe, this year. Mike Vrabel will be a great hire for anybody. The Titans are idiots. I know they've lost in the last couple of seasons, but I don't think it's because of Mike Vrabel. Otherwise, the Seahawks looking, the Chargers looking, the Vegas Raiders, I don't know if they've made a decision on Antonio Pierce yet, if they want him to take over going forward. Granted, I have not been in the Las Vegas mix much, paying attention to those coaching searches, but there's a lot of options here. Now, the Bears double down on their head coach.
Crazy.
But we're also
fired their offensive coordinator, though.
We're also still looking, just to tie this back into college football, we're also still looking into Jim Harbaugh taking an NFL job and Michigan being open. Now, there's rumors and speculation and maybe even some news of an extension for Jim Harbaugh that would put him back into high-paid coaching. You know, he took that notable pay cut a couple of seasons ago. But if there's still suspensions and whatever else on the horizon, it might make sense for Jim Harbaugh to flee like Pete Carroll did and go back to the NFL.
What about Jim Harbaugh fleeing Michigan and going to Washington?
That seems like
if he did that, you know good and well if Jim Harbaugh left and went to Washington, that sanctions are coming to Michigan and it ain't going to be pretty. But if he went to Washington, I think they would probably make it to where Harbaugh couldn't do that. But yeah, I think if he does go to an NFL job, it's like Pete Carroll did, back years ago with the Reggie Bush fiasco was, and Harbaugh could go to Seattle. He end up instead of Spokane, he'll end up in Seattle, end up with the Seahawks. I could see that back on the West Coast, where he was pretty good with the 49ers. But yeah, he'd still be in the same city as the University of Washington. He just wouldn't be coaching in college football anymore.
Tim Brando has tweeted that he just got off the radio with Tide 100.9, and they say that it is official that Kalen DeBoer is the head coach of Alabama. Now, this is Tim Brando.
Yeah. So, do we trust Tim Brando?
We'll have to. It was retweeted by Old Takes Exposed, but I think it's because he tagged Old Takes Exposed. Let's see. Just if anybody else has it.
The Associated Press just put an article out that said that Alabama is close to hiring Kalen DeBoer.
Pat McAfee has tweeted it.
Yeah. ESPN's college football tweeted it.
Pete Thamel's saying it.
Yeah. So Kalen DeBoer is going to Alabama.
Okay.
It's a done deal. Yeah. Are there any? The other thing is at the FCS level, and here I know there's a question that what do I do besides watch FCS football for my free time? I love FCS football. No. Is there an FCS coach out there that Washington, like at South Dakota State, but South Dakota State's head coach this year was a 1 year. This is his first year. He's a former player at South Dakota State, took over for this year because their head coach left and went to, can't remember, because he won his first national title. They've won back-to-backs. I don't see him leaving and going to a job like Washington after 1 year on the job at South Dakota State. North Dakota State's head coach is leaving to go be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator somewhere. So he's gone. I don't see anybody like that getting a job for Washington or at Arizona once Jedd Fisch leaves and goes to Washington. I think that's if you're Washington, to continue to have the success that you're having, Jedd Fisch is going to bring his quarterback. Noah Fafita, you need a quarterback. Right? I mean, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12 besides our boy Michael Penix, who, by the way, played absolutely scared out of his mind in the second half of the national title game. Just wasn't
was
fun to watch. And probably all my fault because I hopped on the bandwagon and I hadn't been all year and he was proving me wrong.
Yep.
And once he didn't have to prove me wrong, he proved me right that I was right all year long. But no, I think that makes Washington really, really good with Jedd Fisch. I think he's done such a good job, pretty much what Kalen DeBoer did at Washington. You know, they went, 4-8 his first year, 5-7, and then you're winning football games the last couple of years with Michael Penix. So, yeah, I think that if you want to keep everything the same, keep it going, keep guys in the program instead of hitting that transfer portal, and you're losing a lot of pieces. Look, it's not like Washington's not losing. You're losing the best wide receiver, maybe in the country besides Marvin Harrison Jr. and Roma Dunze. You lose a couple guys off that offensive line. You're losing your quarterback, obviously. So I think there's a lot of pieces to be put back into place. And does Jedd Fisch want to leave Arizona? What does Arizona do to keep him there? I think that, they will do something to try and keep him there, because they're having such success. Do you want to start over? And if you're Arizona, who do you hire? Because you're going into a new conference. What do you do? It'll be interesting to see. And what?
Big 12 guy like Dana Harbaugh?
Yeah, Dana Holgorsen. I know. Or do you go get a guy that's been in that area before and has been in the Big 12 before, didn't have a lot of success, and Matt Wells?
Oh, I thought you were saying Cliff Kingsbury.
No, not Cliff Kingsbury. No, Matt Wells would be a name that jumps out there. I mean, he's a guy that a lot of people think very highly of. Now, here in Lubbock, we didn't see anything to that that accord. But
the national conversation around Matt Wells was that he got fired too soon because he was 5-3.
Yeah,
I think he'll get another shot. Will he get another shot at Arizona? I don't know. Again, Jedd Fisch, it hasn't left yet, but he's got to be the number one target for what he's done at Arizona. And Arizona, just as a university, doesn't have like cash flow. They are in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Especially after the last couple of years in the Pac-12, where they haven't gotten as much money as they expected. The Big 12 money's not rolling in yet. This is a dangerous situation for both Arizona and Arizona State and Colorado, quite frankly. Now, Colorado's cash flow is Deion dependent.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what their university's doing. So
Deion and Nike dependent now.
I'll say Arizona, they're in trouble. I don't think they can match.
No, because you in that situation, like I said, you not only lose your head coach, who, in my mind, if Kalen DeBoer wouldn't have gone to the playoff, Jedd Fisch very easily could have been the coach of the year in college football with the way that what he did at Arizona, with how bad Arizona has been. Jedd Fisch has gone in there. This is what, year 3? They were 1-9 his first, or 1-9 his first year in that COVID year.
Yeah.
And he's turned that around into a 10-11 win season because they won the bowl game, right? Am I mistaken there? I know they won 10 games in the regular season, correct? Or no, they go 9-3. Either way, they had a great season at Arizona.
Yeah, they finished 10-3 and 11th in the AP.
Yeah, 10-3, 11th in the AP. Just a fantastic season, a double-digit win season after going 1-9 3 years ago. And he made the change at quarterback to his freshman and Noah Fafita. And Noah Fafita, without Michael Penix and Bo Nix in the Pac-12, Noah Fafita would have been the Pac-12's
Okay.
best quarterback.
Hold on. He went 1-11. He took over in 21. So
Okay, 1-11.
23.
Yeah.
1-11, 5-7, 10-3 with an
So in 3 years, he's turned it in from a one-win team to a 10-win team. There's not a lot of head coaches that can do that, especially at a school like Arizona, like you said, Rob, that doesn't have a lot of what these other schools do, even in the Pac-12. And yeah, I think Noah Fafita was better than Caleb Williams this year.
And again, we went through it last, I guess Monday, or maybe even last Friday. His coaching stops, Florida,
Crazy.
Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos, Minnesota, collegiately, Seattle Seahawks, Miami, Florida, collegiately, Jacksonville Jaguars, Michigan, collegiately, UCLA, Los Angeles Rams, New England Patriots, and then Arizona. So just a wild trip around the sun for Jed Fish. And I think he's a logical choice for Washington. Now, again, what does that mean for Arizona? What is the pool that Arizona can go shopping in?
Yeah.
And again, I maybe we're overplaying what Washington do just because they just went to the national championship, but that is a program that has history.
Well, and they have money, they have history, they have 70,000 students in their campus. I mean,
and it's going to the Big Ten.
Yeah. And the Big Ten has more money than the Big 12. Let's just be honest. The Big Ten's a better conference and a better job than the Big 12 is right now.
Well,
it is.
More money doesn't always mean better job. Is Rutgers a better job just because it's in the Big Ten?
Well, I'm talking about the top tier of the Big Ten is better than the top tier of the Big 12.
Okay.
That's where I'm looking.
Then say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now that I've made that clear.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, playing in the Big Ten, being a head coach in the Big Ten is a better job at the top than being a head coach of Arizona in the Big 12, because I think that is Arizona's here, even though they were 10-win team this year, right? Arizona's here. Washington is right here right now. That's a big difference between where teams are and programs are. Washington has a brand new, basically, stadium that they moved into a couple years ago. It is gorgeous right there on the Sound. You can't beat it. It's a perfect atmosphere. It gets loud when it's packed, when they're good, and they've been good. You have all the momentum at Washington. Now, you have momentum in Arizona too, but the momentum of going to a national championship game is massive. Even though you lost, Washington is now a name that you can throw around and recruit homes, and especially in Big Ten. And now that you're moving to the Big Ten, so and with the way, and you can still, if you're Jed Fish, you can still recruit the same guys that you're recruiting at Arizona, the California base, the Arizona base. Fafita, a guy from California, and his best receiver, his best friend from high school, is from California as well. So nothing changes within regard of Arizona and Washington and how you do things and what you do about going about your business, other than you have a little bit more money, you got a better fan base, and it's just a better job. Like, that's the facts. Why wouldn't you go?
To be frank about recruiting, there's no California games in the Big 12.
No, none.
And if that's a recruiting pitch that you get to play in California, you can't do that in the Big 12. You can in the Big 10.
Right.
Because UCLA and USC are in the Big 10. You probably play at least once there. Yep. And Washington to Arizona, depending on where you're from in California, probably easier to get to. But yeah, that Southern California run probably shorter to Arizona than Washington. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Like, what does Arizona and Arizona State do now? Because a ton of their recruitment comes from the state of California. Utah does as well. Now, Utah, Kyle Whittingham recruits the state of Texas really well as well. So that's going to help him continue to do so in the big, since they're coming into the Big 12. But Arizona and Arizona State, a lot of their guys, Colorado too. I don't know what Deion's a national recruiter. He doesn't care where you're from.
He doesn't care.
But a lot of Arizona and Arizona State's
portal. He doesn't care about high school.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Yeah, you got 4 high school signees this year, 5, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But a lot of their guys are from California. It's a great point. Like, you don't play in California anymore. They're not going to ever go home and play a home game in front of their mom and dad and their aunts and uncles and their grandparents at UCLA or USC or Stanford or, you know, wherever it might be, at Cal and Berkeley. That's not going to happen anymore. So maybe Jed Fish sees that writing on the wall as well. I just think if Washington offers him, he's gone. And if he's gone, their quarterback's gone. Fafita's gone. Their other quarterback, who is Fafita's backup at the end of the year, he was in the transfer portal. I think he's already committed somewhere. So Arizona really, really, really gets kicked in the nutsack in this deal with it's just crazy that Nick Saban retires and now Arizona's going to get screwed over.
Yeah, it's still an if. This is just us speculating.
Right. But I think that's the number one name on Washington's list. It has to be.
Here's this from Keegan Renault.
Okay.
On Twitter. Kalen DeBoer's buyout, $12 million. So a little cash flow there. Lance Leipold's buyout.
Oh.
$12.5 million.
Another good name.
Has been a guy. Now he is fighting and scratching and clawing to get Kansas to just spend money on football.
Well, and they've torn down their stadium and building a brand new one.
Well, renovating.
They tore everything down.
They tore half of it down. They tore half of it down.
The whole thing needs to go.
I think it's still a renovation. Whatever it is, I think they're finally going to have some indoor plumbing. Does he stay there? Does he stay there and scratch and claw, or does he go somewhere where infrastructure is already in? I will say this too. Kleiman has been a name. Matt Campbell's been a name. You mentioned Matt Campbell earlier as they go to the Big Ten. Jed Fish makes more sense because he's in that recruiting world, but Leipold also makes a lot of sense.
He is Kalen DeBoer as well. Yes. Both of them had success at the Division III level. They became, they've been good everywhere they've been, right? Like everywhere that Lance Leipold has gone, at Wisconsin, from Wisconsin Whitewater to winning 3-4 state or national titles in a row in Division III, to moving into coaching at Buffalo, where he was really good, won a MAC championship at Buffalo, and Buffalo stinks every year except for when Lance Leipold was there. And now at Kansas is going to bowl games for the first time in forever. And Lance Leipold would be number 2 on my list if I were the AD at Washington and the president at Washington and this search committee. It'd be Jed Fish, Lance Leipold, and then Matt Campbell, probably number 3.
And who would Kansas hire? I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Do they go get the offensive coordinator that just left to Penn State? Do they
just bounced?
Will you please be our head coach? You're the closest thing to Lance Leipold we have. Would they go off the book and get a Cliff Kingsbury type who's kind of
Jeff Traylor's still out there too? Would he want to go to a job like Kansas?
Texas? He's not going to leave.
That's
Texas.
Fair.
He's not going to leave Texas. I have seen some speculation that there are defensive coordinator jobs in the NFL that are flirting with Dave Aranda.
He'd be smart to take one of those.
Jeff Traylor would be a lock at Baylor.
Oh, big time.
Because they're so upset they didn't hire Joey McGuire.
Yeah.
That would suck. But a lot of dominoes are going to be falling the next three
coaching carousel, man. It's like NCAA 14 all over again. It's like a video game right now. So everybody just hop on.
Let's move on from the coaching carousel. I think we could probably spend another hour on it. Speculation. For sure. But what we do know is Kalen DeBoer is going to Alabama, and that Washington job is open. The Washington job will provide a lot of insight into what happens next. And I would assume you see Jed Fish and Lance Leipold in the conversation. Lance Leipold is old enough to where Kansas might be his last job.
Yeah.
And he might just say, hey, I'm doing it. We've already done it. I've already been here 3-4 years. Let's just lock in.
Well, and I think he's a perfect fit for a Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to he's not a guy that seems like he wants the spotlight a whole lot. Like he wants to be this big time guy, but he's just a good football coach. And he's perfect for the University of Kansas University.
And his resume is a guy who goes and spends time where he is.
Yeah, right.
Jed Fish is not.
No.
That guy,
Jed Fish is gone bouncing everywhere, man.
Will take the next opportunity. That is
2 years here, 1 year here, 2 years there, 1. Yeah.
In fact, this might be his longest stop of 3 years in a long time. I don't know.
He literally is like me and as a head coach in NCAA 14, that video game back in the day. You're a head coach of one place 1 year, you're bouncing to the next place the next, right?
Yeah. You always start at like a 2-star program as offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
You're taking the next train out of there.
Exactly. That's Jed Fish right there, man.
All right. Let's get into some Texas Tech talk. The Red Raiders have 2 entrants into the transfer portal today. Matt Keeler, offensive tackle, who was allegedly in the portal before the season ended, before the bowl game. And Joey McGuire said, no, he's not in the portal. Well, now he is.
Yeah.
He's now in the portal, and odd timing. Even as a grad transfer, I think he is. Maybe he was waiting to graduate, but school started yesterday, or Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can enroll anywhere. I think he has to sit at Tech until the end of the year and then go somewhere in the summer. Yeah.
Well, but he's a graduate transfer, so he's graduated. So now he doesn't have to do anything. He can go. He can
that's true.
Go and practice and do spring ball with a team, as long as he's taking like one. He can enroll in like one class or something once he gets to the campus. Once he makes his decision, but he doesn't. He doesn't have to.
I guess Tyler Shuck finished at Oregon in the semester and then came right immediately.
And I don't even know that they have to enroll in a class to participate in spring football if they're a graduate transfer, and then they enroll in their summer school and everything else. So
another one is Steve Linton, who was the offseason MVP last offseason, was going to be the next Tyree Wilson. Was hurt all year, but led the team in pressures allegedly. I've heard. I don't have the pressure rate stats available to me, but look, outside of the Baylor game, he does not have an outstanding resume this year. Had 3 sacks, was hurt all year, hurt his hand, hurt some other things, did not pan out. Now he's in the transfer portal. But this is not a guy. Now, Matt Keeler, been here since Matt Wells, I believe, has not played much. Just hasn't. With Steve Linton, again, we get the comment, bye, Felicia. Now, in the portal, okay, you can just wish a guy well and say goodbye. Steve Linton's not a guy I'm excited about leaving. I think he still has potential.
Yeah, good upside.
I don't think he's as good as they made him out to be before the season, but I don't want to lose a rotation piece like that this late in the go, because now who's your edge room? I mean, you're thin now.
Yeah.
You're probably now looking for another transfer in the edge room to replace Steve Linton. And if you're moving him from the inside to the outside, like Amir Washington, if you're moving him to edge, who replaces Amir Washington inside?
Inside. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Now, you got the kid from Nevada last week, or earlier this week, whenever that was. So maybe that was some writing on the wall. But Steve Linton is gone.
And you also lost another defensive tackle in the transfer portal as well.
Yeah, Lawrence, you can say bye, Felicia. I don't care if that's your reaction.
You're entitled to your own opinion.
Who else left?
The white kid, Norris. What was his last? He didn't really play a ton.
Burris.
Yeah, Burris. Thank you. He is a graduate transfer as well.
I forgot about him. He was hurt all year this year. He was supposed to get a lot of run time.
Right.
I'm a big Blake Burris fan. He dominated the spring game. The black.
Yeah, he was good.
And I was really excited for him. And then he got hurt early. But his Texas Tech career, I think he was a walk-on. He was the punt protector.
Yeah.
He was the personal punt protector for Austin McNamara's first 2 seasons, I think, or at least one full season of that. He never really got in the rotation at the defensive tackle position. I think he has some upside, but again, 3 or 4 years in, if you're not playing, you're not playing.
Yeah. I think if he goes to a team like a Sam Houston State, who's a small level FBS team, or North Texas, somewhere like that where he can get on the field, I think that's a perfect placement for him, for a guy like that hasn't had a ton of reps at the defensive tackle position, but he can go to one of those places and and take what he's learned at Texas Tech and turn it into a starting job and being on the field quite a bit at schools like that. I don't know what what his graduate degree he wants to get in. Obviously, he's not going to be an NFL player. So obviously he's going to want to go to school for something that he wants to do. So it depends on what his graduate degree is going to be in. But North Texas, Sam Houston, because Sam Houston's now in the FBS, that's a place where guys can end up. Places like that. Even a UTSA with Jeff Traylor would be a good fit for a guy like him. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Steve Linton, the big name in the portal. It's one of those things, Rob, like you said, it's like a domino effect again. We talked about it in the coaching carousel. It's a domino effect again, because if he does leave, Amir Washington is the guy that comes to the top of mind because how good he was in the bowl game at rushing the passer. But you had guys on the inside at that point that could fill in right there. You had Tony Bradford still in that game. You had those guys that could do that. Now those guys are gone. So what do you do with Amir Washington's position if you move him to the outside rush? We'll see. And you have a couple freshmen that are big boys that could get playing time now if you need them to, instead of getting that redshirt season like you probably want them to on the defensive tackle position. Because look, the defensive line is one of the toughest positions to play in college football, right? Like, it's not easy. You're talking about a lot of skill, a lot of technique that goes into playing the defensive line. It's not just being the biggest, baddest dude and trying to push your way into the backfield. There's a lot of technique and a lot of technical stuff that you have to do to be a good defensive lineman against some of the best offensive lines in the country. So that's why you don't see a lot of true freshmen playing defensive line. I mean, Braden Fajoko is one of those kids that you can say that was just a freak because he played so much as a true freshman, and he played well as a true freshman. But those kind of freaks don't come along that much. It'll be interesting to see what they do if you don't pick up another late, and you can still pick up another late transfer.
Plenty of time
here in the transfer portal window, in this late window. So, and you still have signing day in February.
Isaiah Crawford. So you're talking about from Post Texas, redshirted this year. He will be in the mix. And then you have Isaac Smith back at the end, which you kind of forget about because he didn't play this year with an injury. That guy potentially is a beast. Certainly flashed in his season before. My opinion, the best holdover from the Matt Wells era, even with guys like Miles Price and Dran Bradley, who are not here anymore. By the way, Dran Bradley might not stay at Boston College.
Just throwing the hands up. That's all you're saying. Okay.
Allegedly. I heard that from somewhere else. I don't remember who I heard it from, so I'm not going to credit them, or else I would say more. But I'll just say that. Isaiah Crawford, Isaac Smith, Amir Washington, Joseph Adedire. You're not lacking in talent,
right?
But Steve Linton is a guy who affects your depth, and
he's played a bunch of snaps too.
If you could have kept him, you would have preferred to keep him. Is all I'm saying.
It's one of those deals you wonder why he goes in the transfer portal, right? Like
the timing of it.
Yeah.
The timing of it is just a little strange to me. Why not stay through spring football and then leave?
Yeah.
Unless you have something set up. Now, last year, you had to get through December to get your last paycheck. So maybe they were just collecting that last paycheck for the fall semester. They get the academic bonus in, you get all your money, and then you enter the transfer portal. If you leave before a certain time, you don't get that you don't cash that check. That could be something. Yeah. I'm not saying he's chasing paper, but aren't we all?
At the end of the day, we're all chasing a little bit of paper. A little bit of scratch, man.
But I don't know that he gets a better NIL deal anywhere else. No. I would assume, Steve Linton, you want two teams from me? SMU, Houston, or he goes back somewhere. Where's he from? I know he played at Syracuse, but where's Steve Linton from?
Is he from up north, or is he one of those guys that played up north and wanted to come home? And that's why he chose Texas Tech.
Right. Dublin, Georgia.
Okay, so he's nowhere near. He hasn't been anywhere near home. So he could
Maybe,
end up at Georgia Tech for all we know.
yeah, Georgia. Maybe he goes back home to Georgia Tech or something like that.
Yeah. Georgia Tech,
Uh,
Georgia State,
but
Georgia
again,
Southern.
I'm not worried about the talent in the room, just the depth, because again, you've had season-ending injuries, you've had injuries, and maybe again, like Lawrence says, Steve Linton saw the writing on the wall and sees all these younger guys and sees Amir Washington moving to the edge and all these other things, and is saying, all right, well, maybe I just don't play as much this year, even if I'm healthy. And if that's the case, I guess it's a good thing. But again, I would rather have Steve Linton coming off the edge on third downs in situations, even if he's not going to play full time. Embarrassment of riches, maybe, but I prefer guys to stay rather than leave, even if they're a little bit of a disappointment. But again, I'm not real worried they leave either, especially a guy like Matt Keeler and Steve Linton. Matt Keeler, who he didn't play much.
I'm not real worried about him.
And then Blake Burris, again, I believe was a walk-on. Go play somewhere, man. Like, if you're not going to play here, go play somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of today's college football, and people talk about it as a negative all the time, but sometimes it's a positive for guys.
Well, and he did it. He did it the right way, right? And so did Keeler to an extent, because you play your 4 years, you've graduated from that university, and it's always better to go get your graduate degree and your master's degree from some other university, right? That's what you're always told. If you're going to get a master's, probably go somewhere else to get it, because you don't want 2 degrees from the same place. Is what I was always told anyways. Never went and got my master's, by the way. Ended up playing baseball for a couple of years. That was my master's program after college. But and it's one, you said it, Amir Washington, the game he had in the bowl game with rushing the passer, they're probably going to move him to the edge. Steve Linton saw that, and he's like, my snaps are getting taken away here. I can see that. And maybe it's better for me to go find a better situation for myself. Maybe it's better to go find a better defensive scheme for himself. I don't know. I feel like this one fits him pretty well. But yeah, and to go in the transfer portal, like you said, with the money thing, that could be the answer. But to go in the transfer portal when you've already probably signed up for classes, you've started classes here in the spring at Texas Tech, like, I wonder, what is he going to do? How's he going to do that if he's in class? Then he decides to go somewhere else. He's just going to finish out class at Texas Tech here in the spring and then go to wherever he decides to end up at Georgia Tech, maybe, who knows? So it'll be interesting to see where a guy like Steve Linton ends up. I hope it's, somewhere that's not in the Big 12 where you don't have to see him, because I do think he's a good edge rusher. I think he's a guy that can make offensive lines have headaches. So you'd love to see him stay. Just because he's in the portal doesn't mean he's not staying either. It just means that he's looking at options. And so that's the way I look at the portal, especially when you go into it this late. And there's no other reason than it looks like playing time and a plethora of riches, like you said, at the edge rusher position right now. So, but you'd love to see a guy like him that's had a ton of snaps under his belt stay and help the younger guys and get better that way. So it's just one of those deals where it's just how college football works in today's day and age. And we just have to start getting used to the fact that guys are going to keep going in and coming out and going in and coming out of the transfer portal and late and early and all that stuff. So it just is what it is. And that's a lot of the reason why Nick Saban is leaving the game of college football right there, because this is how the world of college football works. It's a market where the players get to decide what's best for them, right? No longer is it coaches deciding once they get on campus what they think is best for the player. And if they don't think you're going to play, then you're stuck there for 4 years and you maybe get on the field in your 4th year. The players have all the options in the world in today's day and age in the transfer portal. Now the NCAA is trying to come up with a way to negate some of that, and the coaches are trying to get with the NCAA and find out ways that are better for the transfer portal, where it's not just this free agent window basically in college sports, but it is what it is, man. And it's not wrong for a kid to want to go find a place that he feels like he can play and be a bigger part of. I don't think it should be frowned upon. Now, sometimes it does rub you the wrong way, like a kid's not getting his playing time that he feels he's deserved when he's not that good and he bounces. But if he's not that good and he's not playing, why do you care?
Yeah, and I think it's different if it's a grad transfer versus a freshman leaving after 1 year. But what are these coaches promising? What are these coaches guaranteeing in the living room? Did they not stand up to their promises? Did you tell him he was going to play and then he didn't play? Whatever it is, I think there's a lot of opinions and options there. And then you have Nick Saban after the LSU game going to an Alabama transfer that's playing for LSU saying, hey, you would have played more here. Why'd you leave? And that's on the field after a game.
Yeah.
So, again, Saban is Saban, and he started the dominoes. He left DeBoer to Alabama. And then you have the transfer portal mess. You already had a kid decommit from a five-star decommit from Alabama. Texas Tech fans are begging Casey Poe to decommit from Alabama on Twitter. I think he said, wow, when the news dropped, and there was a bunch of Texas Tech fans in his mention. Again, the transfer portal, it might be early enough now that school started. It might be early enough to just get out of your NLI. But I would assume you stick through the spring and then maybe transfer your one free transfer. But again, all those kids at Alabama, you're still at Alabama.
Yeah.
Depending on the coaching staff that DeBoer hires, this is a national championship appearance coach who's coming over, and his head coaching record is like 112 and 10 or something, 120 and 10 as a head coach. So, I mean, is he Nick Saban? No, not yet. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to win 6 national championships at Alabama in the next 12 years, but I don't think you took a huge step down, just for what it is. For what it is.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's a huge step down in resume, but who has Nick Saban's resume?
Nobody.
You weren't matching that.
Nobody. I mean, the only guy that's coaching right now in the world that has somewhat of a Nick Saban style resume is Kirby Smart, because he was on Nick Saban's staffs when they were winning national championships, and then he's won 2 at Georgia. So
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, Urban Meyer, but he's not coaching now. Yeah, he's not coaching now. I mean, those are the only guys that you go to that have won. You know, Kirby Smart's the only guy that's been close to what Nick Saban did early in his career, especially at LSU, and then early in his tenure at Alabama. He just came in and started winning after Alabama was not good for years before Nick Saban got. And I mean, not good, like they weren't Alabama. Nobody cared about Alabama football. Let's put it that way. Texas Tech was playing them in the Cotton Bowl and nobody gave a crap. Right? Like that was Alabama before Nick Saban got there. So yeah, it changed completely. The landscape of college football changed when Nick Saban got to Alabama. And I think the only guy close to Nick Saban now, the best coach in the country, has to be Kirby Smart, right? Like that has to be, he has to be the best coach currently coaching in college football, because he's got 2 national titles. He was on those staffs with Nick Saban. He was a lot of the reason that Alabama won their national titles when he was there. So, and that defense, those defenses were so freaking good at Alabama when Kirby Smart was the defensive coordinator. I mean, Barkevius Mingo, all those guys, or Ringo, and then Ringo at Georgia. I get those 2 guys confused. One played at Georgia, one played at Alabama. But
Ringo was at Georgia.
Yeah, Ringo was at Georgia. So just stupid talent. And so, you know, you're not getting Kirby Smart from Georgia. There ain't no way Georgia's letting him go. So Kalen DeBoer, the hottest coach, maybe the hottest coach in college football is Kalen DeBoer. With his resume and everything else that he's done in his career up to this point, it's pretty much flawless. So why not go after a guy like a Kalen DeBoer? And if it doesn't work out, you know, so be it. And if Kirby Smart doesn't win a national title in the next 2 years at Georgia and wins 10 games, they ran Mark Richt out of town because he won 10 games 3 straight years and couldn't win an SEC East. They ran him out of town because he won 10 games. So if Kirby Smart does the same thing, then and can't win a national title again, maybe Kirby Smart ends up back at Alabama. Who knows? But I think that this is a good hire for Alabama. I think Kalen DeBoer is a different hire for Alabama, but it's a different college football landscape than it was when you hired Nick Saban and then what, Nick Saban coaches like. That's why you're seeing a lot of these older coaches getting out of college football, getting out of college basketball, Jim Boeheim's and the Mike Krzyzewskis and those guys of the world who could have kept coaching. Like they could have kept coaching. They're all around the same age in their 70s. But the game's changed. They don't want to play this game anymore. They don't want to do that. You can't be that old school guy anymore like you could be 5-6 years ago. So that's why you're seeing the regime changes.
I've got one more Washington name for you.
Okay.
Former Big Ten coach, assistant coach, NFL experience, could feel burned by the NFL experience after his latest firing. You know what I'm talking about?
Former Big Ten assistant.
Mike Vrabel.
Oh, Mike Vrabel. Yeah.
Coach at Ohio State.
Yeah. How about that firing? That was crazy to me.
I mean, that'd be a wild card. You know what? I could see Washington, now that we've thought about it for 20 minutes here. They might just hire Grubb. Wouldn't that be so boring?
That would be boring.
I hope he takes him to Alabama.
That's the thing too, is what does Kalen DeBoer do with that staff at Alabama? It ain't like that. No. The staff at Alabama can't shake it. Like,
no. I wouldn't keep Tommy Rees, but that's just me.
No, I wouldn't either. I'd bring Grubb, but I don't know who else you bring as far as like support staff and, wide receivers, coaches, the guys that have been on the recruiting trail and recruited this class for Alabama. Like, what do you do with these guys? They didn't decide Nick Saban should retire.
Yeah.
So what do they do? You have one of the best coaching staffs in the country at Alabama. So what do you do?
All right. Lawrence, appreciate you joining in. Have a good one. You'll be at the basketball game tomorrow. Good
Jalen Milroe stay. Where's he going to go?
Let's talk. We'll move on. We've been lots of things to discuss with Alabama.
Fair enough.
I think some of it'll shake out by Monday. Maybe we'll talk about it then. But an hour in here, we need to get some basketball in. Big 12 basketball, ridiculous Saturday, ridiculous Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. Kansas loses. That was a shock. UCF, what in the world? They should be 0-2 in Big 12 play. Kansas should, with TCU falling at the Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Kansas, what are they? What is
exactly?
What is Texas Tech? The top of the Big 12, Houston. It's a strange world. Now, if you're doing tiers, you probably still put Kansas at the top just because of the non-conference they had. Rough start to conference play for them, though. TCU nearly beating Kansas, should have beat Kansas, and then beating Oklahoma pretty handily.
At home.
Are they at the top of the Big 12? Do they belong up there? Texas Tech winning and covering twice. If they win and cover against Kansas State, who's also 2-0 in the Big 12, do they vault themselves up to the top of the Big 12?
Houston's at the top of the Big 12 for me.
Houston loses to Iowa State. Yeah. Where are they in the Big 12? I think Houston and Kansas probably still two best teams. Baylor, I think, is up there if they're shooting hot. TCU and Texas Tech, I think, are up there. What is UCF now with 12 wins and a win against Kansas?
That was a fluke. That was one of those where it happened. I mean, UCF went to Kansas State and got their doors absolutely blown off, right? Like, UCF may be able to win a couple on their home floor. Don't get me wrong. You can win on your home floor.
Are you saying Bill Self was eating the cheese and did not appreciate UCF?
I'm saying Bill Self could have cared less about what he was doing in Orlando, Florida. Bill Self might have taken the team to Disney World the night before just
Maybe
because
so.
they thought UCF sucked. And then they found out that UCF wasn't as bad. Kansas was up by 16.
Yeah.
16 points with like 4 minutes left in the first half, and they lose.
Yeah.
They lose to UCF. That's bad. Kansas State's got bragging rights right now because they're 2-0 in that Sunflower Showdown. They're ranked higher than Kansas in the standings in the Big 12. And then Houston, like you said, losing to Iowa State. Like, I thought Houston and Kansas were the two best teams in this conference. They're 1-1 in conference play, and Kansas should, like you said, should be 0-2. If TCU had a couple shots back that they'd like to take, if Micah Peavy were able to put down one in the paint late in that game, and Micah Peavy played really good against Oklahoma the other day. If you got to watch any of that game, here's the thing: it stinks because you watch all around the Big 12. Micah Peavy is really good at TCU. Kevin McCullough is really good at Kansas, and there's a couple other guys that have played at Texas Tech that have been good. Chibuzo Agbo is doing great at Boise State too. They were all a part of those recruiting classes for Chris Beard's team. So the Big 12, man, it always is this way. It's a meat grinder, and you're going to lose on the road sometimes. Some teams are going to win on the road. Texas Tech stole one at Texas. That's huge, right? And then you hold serve at home. You play pretty good against Oklahoma State, and I say pretty good. You scored, 90 points almost, 92 points against Oklahoma State. Didn't see that coming in this boring offense, right? That people said. But Dave Smart, I tell you what, Dave Smart has – I don't know if he's figured out the Big 12 defenses, but he's figured out the first two Big 12 defenses pretty well. Dave Smart might be put some respect on Dave Smart's name.
This is the best coaching staff you've had since Beard, Adams, and Berg were together, where Berg was doing all the game planning and the film watching. I thought the staff fell off a little bit after Berg left. Berg and what's the guy
Sutton on that staff as well.
No disrespect to Sutton, but
but you had Sutton on that staff. He was more like
no. That the other head coach on the staff. He went to UTA and then he met Beard back in Texas. The Oaf. What was his name? The Ogre. What was his name? Anyways,
I literally saw him on TV the other day, and now I can't think of what his name is.
UTA.
He played at Texas.
Yeah.
Anyways,
big tall. That's the second show in a row we've just lost.
It's gonna wear me out, man, because we've said so many names today.
Chris
Ogden. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. I knew it started with an O. Yeah, Ogden. Yeah,
teamwork, baby. Oh, ball knower.
Ball knower. Got it. Yeah, got to know your balls.
All right. By the way, I just saw my first tweet of Cliff Kingsbury to Washington. Sources say.
If Cliff Kingsbury ends up at Washington, that will be the death of Washington football.
I don't know, man. I think it was overrated how much he hated recruiting. He just didn't have the recruiting infrastructure. If Cliff had a Joey McGuire that was doing all the recruiting, and he didn't have to, he just was the head coach. Like Joey recruits, okay, but he's not the lead recruiter on this team. No. Now he's got the name, he's got the everyone. Hey, do you know Joey? I work for Joey. He gets you into every high school.
He's the closer.
But it's Blanchard and the boys, Nance and the boys that are doing all the heavy lifting. So if Cliff had a group like that doing all the recruiting, I think he could come back to college coaching. Certainly offensively could tear up the Big Ten, in my opinion. We'll see what happens. I don't know that was a joke tweet I think I saw, but it was already picked up by some big name people just because that's what they do. Dog, and if you know who that is, he's a joke.
West Texas is best Texas. Put it in on the comment section too.
Yeah,
just here for the Kingsbury to Washington discussion. Yeah.
Back to man. I want Jedfish to go to Washington because I don't want him in Arizona.
I don't either. I don't want him or Noah Fafita at Arizona next year. No, don't want to see him.
I'd rather have Cliff at Arizona.
Yeah.
Anyways, this weekend, all of a sudden, people were talking about Kansas State fell off. Tyler Perry, a shell of himself at North Texas. I'm serious. People are doing this before Big 12 play started. Now they're 2-0 in Big 12 play. So is Texas Tech. This is for all intents and purposes this Saturday for first place in the Big 12, and you get them at home, and you're 6.5-point favorites. At least that's where it opened. Or that's what the Ken Palm said on Wednesday. Is it open yet? We'll see.
Let me look.
It's about 24 hours to tip off, so I'm sure it is.
Doesn't show it. I don't see it on ESPN as open.
Let me see. I got it here on the Action Network.
There you go. That was the next one I was checking.
Here, let's rapid fire these. Oklahoma plus 5.5 at Kansas. Hammer Kansas.
Yeah, hammer Kansas. Kansas is going to play pissed off.
BYU -5 on the road at UCF. Emotional hangover. Hammer BYU.
BYU needs a conference win. They're 0-2.
Kansas State +7 against Texas Tech.
Oh, wow. Yeah, give me Kansas State. Not to win, to cover.
I mean, you've covered twice. Can you cover 3 times in a row? If you win and cover, I don't care who you've played. If you do that in the Big 12, you're a good basketball team.
Does the committee look at that, though?
Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Oklahoma State +13. That screams weird matchup. I might take Oklahoma State there, but probably Iowa State. Hey, what's the kid's name? Mamovich?
Yeah, sure.
Baby Dirk at Iowa State.
At Iowa State, yeah.
Dude is for real.
Yeah, he's good.
Texas, West Virginia. Texas -5.5 on the road.
Yeah, give me Texas.
I think I agree there. Houston
West
-5 in Fort Worth.
Yes.
And then Baylor -6.5 against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's another team that might punch up a little here in the Big 12.
But is BYU a faker? Like, they're 0-2 in the Big 12. They got beat at Cincinnati by 10 at home, or 11, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
BYU's a faker, right? Like, they're not for real. And Cincinnati, I think that they're going to go on the road to their first true Big 12 road test.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Baylor.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Cincinnati went to BYU and beat BYU.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So they haven't truly technically had a true Big 12 road test because BYU.
I don't know. BYU packs it in.
Go to Baylor, figure out how the road really gets done in the Big 12.
They pack it in 16,000 strong there in Provo.
They weren't strong the other day when Cincinnati came to town. Because Cincinnati bowled through there.
I just mean it's a big arena.
Yeah, it's a big arena. Yeah.
Biggest
what else do they have to do? I guarantee you they don't sell beer there, though.
No. It's probably they're past
They sell those tiger claw or whatever the things are called.
Cougar tails.
Yeah, cougar tails. There you go.
They're cougars, not tigers.
Yeah, whatever.
Let's see.
It's a cat.
Big cat. So Kansas State, Texas Tech, 12-3, 13-2. Last 5, Kansas State beats West Virginia, beats UCF, beats high school. I don't know. CHS. What is that? Wichita State loses to Nebraska, gets hammered by Nebraska, by the way. Texas Tech 5-0 in their last 5, even longer streak. They've also covered 4 of the last 5. They did not cover against UTA. They've covered every since. And that's -16.5 for Sam Houston, -18.5 against UNA, North Arkansas, and then +6.5 against Texas, -8 against Oklahoma State. They've also gone over 4 of the last 5. We're taking the over at 139.
Yes. With these two teams, yeah.
I think I'm taking the under.
Okay.
And I'll go with Texas Tech until it doesn't happen.
I'm going to take Kansas State to cover. Texas Tech wins 82-78.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it could very easily end up a track meet with these two teams.
I'll take the opposite. I'll go 74 to 62. I think you throttle Kansas State's offense.
I hope so. I hope so.
Let me look up the scoring matrix to see if I'm close.
I mean, they're averaging 76 points a game as Kansas State, so I'm a little bit closer to my prediction.
Yeah,
but
points against 65. You're giving up. They shoot 43%. They out rebound you.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the game. That's if you can control your rebounding, which you've not done in every game. If you can rebound well, you can cover. If you don't, you don't.
Well, you've got to keep Kaluma off the offensive boards. He's what 6'7", 6'8", but he rebounds really well. He's averaging, I think, 8 rebounds a game. I don't know how to say I'm guessing he's 6'9" from the Netherlands. He averages 8.5 rebounds a game. So those two dudes, you've got to put bodies on. Warren Washington has to play big. He's bigger than both of these guys. He's got to have another good game. Does Warren Washington? Remember what I said early in the year before Big 12 season started? I said Warren Washington's going to have to figure out how to be a big in this physical conference. I think the first 2 games he's done really good. He's played really well. He's got to continue to be good for this ball club. And when Robert Jennings gets in, he's got to do his part too. So, I think it ends and it starts and ends with the rebound with second chance opportunities. You can't give Kansas State too many second chance opportunities. You can't give them easy putbacks. These two guys love to get on the boards. Warren Washington has to do a good job of that. And, you've got to control the paint. And Kansas State's going to want to shoot it from outside. You're going to want to shoot it from outside a little bit. Curran Walton's going to have a good day. If you can have another, couple good days from the guys off your bench, then I think you're fine. You will score points. I think this game is going to be a little bit higher scoring just because both teams are going to want to get out and get the other team to where they can't set up in the half court defensively. So I think that's what we'll see. Or it's going to be completely opposite and I'm an idiot and it's going to be a half court game and both teams are going to run their sets and the shot clock, we're going to see a bunch of shot clocks ticking down to 5s and 4s and getting up shots late in shot clocks. So it could go one of those two ways. I don't think there's any middle ground there. I think it's going to either be a track meet or we're going to see a half court game and a very low scoring one like what you've predicted.
Another prediction. Pop Isaacs outscores Tyler Perry. But that's the X factor. Tyler Perry might want to play his best game of the season against his former head coach. I don't know exactly what the deal was there. Did he want to follow him? Did Gas say, "Nah, I have Pop Isaacs. I don't need you"?
I think Tyler Perry saw you at Pop Isaacs.
Yeah, I said before the season that I think Pop Isaacs can be a better Tyler Perry in this offense. I just feel like he's better, proving to be true. But I think final prediction here, Pop Isaacs does not hit the 20 mark. I think he's hit the 20 mark in 5 straight games. Eventually that stops. I'll take him to get, 17 instead of 24.
In his own building. I think he shoots it really well in his own building. I think you're comfortable in your own building.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know that the 20-point streak ends tomorrow in the USA. And by the way, the CHS was Chicago State on that Kansas State schedule. I just saw that. But pretty much a high school team. So
CHS is Chicago State?
Yeah, Chicago State. Chicago CHS State. I don't know. Chicago?
Well, I guess, but you don't usually do like mailing
airport
addresses.
It's Chicago State, man. Like I said, nobody cares. Might as well be a high school team.
That's what I thought. Chicago High School.
Chicago isn't even a state. Agreed. Good pizza though. I could go back to Chi-Town tomorrow and eat some pizza.
Chicago State?
Yeah, Chicago State. They're a Division I school, yeah. Have to be.
It's the most affordable public university in Chicago.
There you go.
This says CSU. Why is it C8?
Well,
Anyways,
isn't that because Northwestern's a private university? So is the University of Illinois Chicago, I guess, would be the other public school. It's right there in downtown. Beautiful campus at Illinois Chicago, by the way.
yeah.
Curtis
But
Granderson.
the
big
school
time
we've
player.
never heard of is obviously the most affordable. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, going back to
Originally, it's was predominantly white, but now
surprise,
it's
surprise.
considered an HBCU.
Okay, good for them.
So there you go.
There you go.
The more you know. We
Learning
both
it
have,
all here on the Rob Bro Show, baby.
Texas Tech winning. You've got Kansas State covering. I've got Texas Tech covering. Just until it doesn't happen, I'm riding the train, baby.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the game, X factors, or whatever else you want to say before we wrap it up here? I got to go to the bank.
Nah, just bench play has got to be consistently the same way it's been the last couple games. That's why you've won the first 2 games in conference plays, because your bench play has been very good. You've gotten good production from the bench, even though you're only playing 8 dudes. If you've had that production from the bench, you're going to be just fine in this conference. So that's got to be key number 1. Key number 2 is, like I said, keeping Kansas State from getting 2 and 3 looks at the basket after their first attempts. So, and then keeping them off the free throw line as well will be big for Texas Tech. And I think going after this Kansas State defense, maybe see what you can get them in a little bit of foul trouble, especially their 2 bigs, because I think if Warren Washington can control the paint, he can have a very, very good day. A double day is very easily done here against Kansas State. I think if Warren Washington really just plays well and plays within himself. So, and a few blocks in his future too. He's 7 foot tall. Their tallest guy's 6'9". So you have the size advantage, you have the height advantage, and Warren Washington, I think, is a good player, and he's been a better player than their 2 bigs so far. So we'll see.
Joe Toussaint can't lead you in rebounding if you're gonna cover against Kansas State.
Joe Toussaint's just really good at seeing the long rebound, right?
He is, but I think Warren Washington needs to get 8.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be his number.
Yeah, I'd be happy if Warren Washington could get 8, because these 2 guys are averaging 8 apiece, which is 16 rebounds for those 2 dudes. Some teams don't even have 16 rebounds. So, you need to rebound the basketball and limit second chance opportunities, crash the boards, and finish down low. When you get the ball down low, when you get in the paint, you've got to score points in the paint. Right. And that's what Oklahoma, I was watching the Oklahoma TCU game the other night, and Oklahoma led early because they had 18 points in the paint out of their 20 points to start the game. They're up 20-16. They started missing shots in the paint. They couldn't shoot it from the outside. TCU takes over and starts doing things on their offensive end, starts dropping shots. Like I said, Micah Peavy played really well in that ball game. So, and then Oklahoma just stopped doing what they were doing early and getting the ball in the paint and scoring. They started shooting from the outside, and that's what lost Oklahoma the basketball game. So if you get it inside, you've got to make your buckets inside. And then the kick outs, obviously this team shoots it really well on the kick out 3. I'd love to see what the percentage is when you go through the metrics of what the kick out 3 looks like, because that's a big time perimeter shot, and you have dudes who can knock that down for Texas Tech. So I think Texas Tech is the better basketball team coming into this, but Kansas State's also very well coached with Jerome Tang, and they have dudes too. Tyler Perry's a good player, and Grant McCaslin knows that. So this will be a good matchup. I think it's going to be close I think it's going to be a game of runs. You just got to make the last run at the very end of the game and be on top.
Amen. All right. We will talk about it again next week. Recap you as well with the Gambling Gauchos on Sunday night with Ryan Money Mainville and Kyle Jacobson.
Hey, you have any NFL predictions this weekend?
With the playoffs?
Yeah.
Let's see.
The Chiefs, we can just run through the games. I mean, you have
the playoffs here.
Yeah, I forgot to.
Hold on. Let me get you.
Browns and Texans in Houston. Cleveland's a 1.5 point favorite in Houston.
All right. So who would you take? Browns, Texans +2.5 or now +1.5 there?
Yeah, I like the Texans at home.
I like the Texans too.
If CJ Stroud is healthy.
Hey, Joe Flacco is the man, but CJ Stroud, I think, one of the best rookies. And somebody said, who was it? Somebody on Pat McAfee's show said that Houston didn't have a chance and that rookie quarterbacks can't play well in the playoffs. And then later on the Pat McAfee show, they told CJ Stroud that, and I really liked his reaction. So maybe CJ Stroud just goes off because that one guy. Dolphins Chiefs. Originally, the line was Chiefs 3.5. Hammering the under in this game.
Hammering.
It's supposed to be like 5 degrees, -5 degrees, wind chill. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. Friend of the program is also the white hat in this game too. Love
it, guy. You taking the Chiefs? Oh, with Brad Rodgers, you never know.
Brad Rodgers. Even though I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Brad Rodgers' crew is like 13-4 against the over this year.
So they hit the under, or they go over,
or against the under. They go over. They're 13-4 when you bet the over. You'd be 13-4 if you bet the over with Brad Rodgers' crew, which is a good sign. They don't throw flags, and they do things the right way, and
they chase elephants.
Yeah. And so it's going to be really cold. -10.
Give me a pick. Chiefs, Dolphins.
Chiefs.
Yeah, me too.
The Dolphins can't play in the cold, man. They're a warm water mammal.
Steelers, Bills. Bills -9.5 originally.
Holy crap. Yeah, give me the Bills.
I think so too.
Steelers.
Yeah. They don't deserve it.
Mason Rudolph going to start at quarterback again?
Hey, he's been their best quarterback this year.
Yes, I mean, it's not that hard to be better than Kenny Pickett.
But. And it's not like Josh Allen's been great this year. Now, they closed the year really strong. But we'll see. I would still take the Bills.
Yeah, after firing Matt Canada.
Packers, Cowboys, -7.5. Cowboys, where's that line today? I've got these lines from like last week.
7.
Okay.
Instead of 7, so pretty much the same. Give me the Cowboys.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
They got to get redemption at some point, right?
Against the Packers.
Against the Packers.
McCarthy's terrible against the Packers.
But he was good against the Cowboys with the Packers.
We'll see. Aaron Rodgers was.
Yeah, true.
Let's see. Rams, Lions. Lions -2.5. Matt Stafford returns.
Man. Give me Jared Goff and the Lions, man.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
At
home.
I think we just went all together there.
Dan Campbell biting people's legs off.
Monday night kneecaps. Eagles +2.5.
Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly.
I hate Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield stinks.
I lean Bucks there. The Eagles are.
They're 9-8, and they went to the playoffs. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
The Eagles finished 2-4.
Yeah, they're 11-6. So what? They did their work early. They cruised to the finish.
The only worst finish was the Jaguars.
They just didn't want to get hurt late in the season, man. Who cares?
As far as like teams that had 10 wins.
It'll be the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl game.
I think we're 10-3 and missed the playoffs. Or 8-3 and missed the playoffs. Wild. So you're going Eagles?
Yeah.
Okay. What basketball game in the Big 12 did you feel most confident on?
Which basketball game in the Big 12?
Yeah, do you remember the lines?
Yeah.
You're going Kansas State. You feel confident about Kansas State?
In Texas at West Virginia.
-5.5 Texas.
No, Texas. Yeah, Texas at West Virginia. I feel pretty confident in that. I think Texas wins by double digits.
What NFL game are you most confident in?
The Chiefs beating the Dolphins. Yeah. It's going to be so cold, the Dolphins ain't going to want to play. Tua's from Hawaii. Nah. I'm
the worst picker in my picks this year in our Gambling Gauchos Discord thing. And I'm on the verge of having to have a punishment. So I just took all your picks, and we're going to see if you can do better than me.
I hope I lose now. I
No.
really hope I lose now.
We were mostly the same. I would have picked the Bucks. I wouldn't have picked Texas as my wild card, but hey,
What's West Virginia going to do against Texas?
It's Morgantown, man. Crazy stuff happened.
They got boat raced at home last week.
They're sent. Chiefs were put 3 units on the Chiefs, by the way.
West Virginia got to be 81-67 by Kansas State and Morgantown. So.
Hey, West Virginia sucks. It's a good pick. I wouldn't have picked it, but I just told you I was like 40% this year.
Yeah. Texas only has to win by 6. Ain't that hard to do.
Hey, I'm not saying, yeah. Me saying it's a bad pick is saying it's a good pick.
It's fair with
This
the way
year.
you've been this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Historically, you're pretty good, Rob.
Historically, I am. I just have been off. And we do this thing called the triple play.
Yeah.
And I started like 0-7 on my triple play. So instead of 3 wins, it's 3 losses. And
Ooh.
just those, like I was pretty good the rest of the time, but the triple play was murdering me. I just hadn't dug out of the hole. Even when I go like just 10 picks a week with the triple play. So even if I get 5 picks right, I still miss the triple play and suck. So trying to beat Big Hen. Shout out to Big Hen. We are very close. I think he's 1 or 2 games ahead of me right now. So trying to pass Big Hen as the loser.
What's the punishment?
We never decided on the punishment. We talked about the Waffle House thing where you have to go eat 20. You have to spend 24 hours in a Waffle House.
I could do that.
And then I think every waffle takes an hour off your time.
I could hammer 24 waffles from Waffle House.
That's what I thought. They're 10-inch waffles, but
Yeah.
I think that would be simple. It's just the cost of it now. Because you got to drive to Amarillo.
True. Yeah, we don't have one here.
Maybe I could convince him to do a Denny's thing.
Little super stacks.
Yeah, or IHOP.
Yeah.
I still call it IHOB.
IHOB.
Do you remember that?
International House of Burgers when they changed it for like a month.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah, we're good. We're talking about burgers now. I'm hungry.
Let's do it.
Peace.
See y'all next week.